What's up YouTube, Dread Pirate here. I'm playing some Battlefield 4, haven't played in a little while, and decided to take a break from my other series. So I picked up my buddy Sarjek, headed out into Goldman Railway in a Conquest large map, and I jumped in the Q5 Phantom attack jet. Kind of an interesting little plane. I've seen a lot of other people fly this, and they tend to use laser-guided missiles or the Hydra rockets as opposed to the JDAM, and that kind of puzzled me. So I decided to try it out myself a few matches ago and kind of figured out why they may not like it. It's a little bit harder to use than the laser-guided, TV-guided, or the Hydra rockets in that it takes a bit more skill to land a good hit with it, but when you do, it's quite rewarding. So I spent some time trying to figure out the best way to use it, and this is kind of what I came to. In case you're wondering, I'm using gyro stabilizer and ECM. Don't have the auto loader, which I guess I probably could just for getting a little bit more damage out of the autocannon, but I feel like the gyro stabilizer is much more important because occasionally you'll get hit with a stinger. No matter how many times you ECM or chaff, eventually one's always going to catch up to you. And if you don't have gyro stabilizer, you're almost always going to lose control of the aircraft, and if you happen to be in a dive like I am and you get hit, you're most likely going to crash because you don't have the aerodynamics to pull back up and get back up in the sky. The great thing about gyro is that if you do survive that hit, you do recover a lot faster from the initial disable, and you can gain back up to some altitude where they won't be able to lock onto you. So you'll see here that I'm just kind of strafing targets and then coming in low as the end of my strafe and dropping the bomb directly onto them. And that seems to be the best way to use the JDAMs in my opinion. You just kind of almost fly it like a World War II dive bomber, albeit at a little bit lower angle of attack. You can come in from directly above if you want, but that makes it a bit harder to pull up. But as you can see, it's devastating. You can easily take out tanks and APCs with single gun runs doing this, where other tactics might require a follow-up gun run. One thing you do have to watch out for is active protection. When a tank or vehicle does activate active, if they activate it right before you're about to drop the bomb, you want to go ahead and hold off on dropping the bomb because the active protection will negate the JDAM. But if they activate it when you're at least 5 seconds away, since that's the duration of the JDAM, or I'm sorry, the duration of the active protection, you can just hold off and then go ahead and drop the bomb, and you usually get at least a mobility kill on them, which will definitely make them more vulnerable to your teammates on the ground if they happen to be near something else. If they're not near your teammates or actively engaging other people, you may as well not even bother dropping the bomb because chances are they're just going to get out and repair their vehicle while you come around on another attack. Guess you can use that to your advantage because you'll know where they're at when you come back in on the return pass. But chances are, if they know you're coming, they're going to get to cover. They're going to have their active protection ready, or some other way of trying to keep themselves alive from your second run. You kind of have to deal with the element of surprise. The other thing that people often seem to forget about the attack jet is that it's perfectly capable of dealing with aircraft. They might think that it's not quite as skilled at it due to the fact that it doesn't have any air missiles, which you can get the passive air-to-air missiles on this, and they are quite effective at removing enemy helicopters and things like that. But generally speaking, when people think an anti-air jet or air superiority, they're going to go with the stealth jet. The attack jet, on the other hand, can turn just as quickly. Sometimes it seems like even more quickly than the stealth jets can. And the 30mm cannon doesn't do quite as much damage to aircraft as the 20mm that the jet starts with, the stealth jet, but it is still plenty punishing if you get on their tail. The biggest thing is making sure that you're the one who's on the tail and not being pursued yourself. If you can use ECM to break a pursuit if you have to. That seems to work sometimes, but generally speaking, the stealth jets are pretty good at tracking, at least the ones that end up on my 6. So you kind of have to balance when you want to tango with a stealth jet versus asking your teammates for help. Now me, I've got Sarjek. He's in a stealth jet himself, helping to cover me. You can see him flying off to the right there, and he just does a pretty good job of covering my 6, and I can actually help cover him too. In some cases, he'll get a jet on his tail. And even though I'm in an attack jet, I can still come over and, at the very least, distract the other jet to get off his 6, or, best case scenario, blow it up myself. So having good communication, a good wingman is definitely going to help you out in an attack jet. And I think that the JDAMs, when you're using them in this fashion, especially if you've got support to help cover your air aspect, can be a serious game changer. Didn't do much in this match, of course. My ground team was not doing so good at holding points. And I think we did actually end up losing this one, but generally speaking, you can be a fairly strong force multiplier when in an attack jet and properly supported by a wingman. Now you'll notice I got a mobility kill on that APC down there, and it's important to note the difference between a mobility hit and a mobility kill. With a mobility hit, it reduces the vehicle's speed to approximately 50%, maybe even 25%. It's very slow, down to a crawl. But when you get a mobility kill, you've completely disabled the vehicle in question. And mobility kills occur when you inflict, I think the threshold is generally 50% damage, unless they have reactive armor. Reactive armor does increase the damage threshold. But if you increase 50% the damage in one attack run, or in one hit specifically, you'll inflict a mobility kill on a non-reactive armored vehicle, and that will basically lock them in place. You know, they can get out and repair to fix the damage, of course, but the engine will stay offline until I think either the vehicle gets back to 100% or until it repairs itself. I think it has about a 5 to 10 second disable, which is pretty devastating, especially against something like an APC, where it depends on its agility to stay ahead of the game. And you'll notice here Sarjek's got a fighter on his tail, and I mentioned this earlier. I can come over here and put some shots into this guy, and now all of a sudden he realizes, okay, it's not just one fighter that I'm winning a duel with, there's another fighter that's now on my 6. And this guy chooses the cowardly option. Rather than going down with the ship, he ejects. And you see him there parachuting down. But yeah, so again, having a wingman, I had Sarjek on TeamSpeak with me, so we had good communication. Makes a huge difference in how well you can do in a jet. But between Sarjek covering me, and I also have my friend CN Noob from the Oops group. I'm not sure if that's an actual group or clan, or if that's just his snarky little clan tag, but he was covering me from the ground using the HVMs to take out helicopters that were trying to kill me, which is pretty awesome. And Sarjek was covering the air. Now this tank here, you'll notice, activated his active protection, but he activated it way too early, still allowing me plenty of time to get a JDAM on him, and I still was able to score a mobility kill on him, thus disabling him in the middle of the highway with an attack helicopter in the immediate vicinity. Pretty much sealed his fate, and at the same time I attracted the attention of their attack jet. So, in case you're not familiar, the attack jet's peak turning speed seems to be around 315 to 317 knots. So if you keep your throttle right around that, tapping your brakes to stay at that speed, you can get maximum turning rate and try to get on the assailant's tail. Otherwise, you may end up in what's effectively known as a circle jerk, and you'll simply end up spinning around, constantly chasing each other, with neither side gaining any effective ground, and that's a good time to call in a friend with a missile launcher. Didn't have to do that in this case, since the offending jet simply crashed into something, and I managed to get out of there scot-free. And I saw an enemy chilling on the train down there, and decided that he needed a bomb. It was a special delivery, is what that was. He ordered one 1,000-pound JDAM and had it delivered via Pirate Express. I hope he was happy with this purchase. Maybe he'll leave me some nice feedback. Now, just a couple other tips here. You may have noticed that I've been looking around the cockpit, and a lot of people seem to forget you can hold down the right mouse button to head look around the cockpit, which is really great for keeping track of the battlefield without actually having to change the direction. It's useful for gaining altitude and still peeking behind you to see where everyone's at for a second attack run. And what a lot of people don't realize is you can actually spot targets while doing this. So you'll just have to kind of picture where your reticle is supposed to be in the center of your field of view when doing so. But if you're looking at a vehicle with the right click and you click Q, it will mark it and broadcast its location to your teammates. Now, spotting vehicles is actually very important when you're in a jet, because it can be very hard to keep track of them through the smoke and the battlefield fog. And you'll notice right here, when he's marked, he shows up on the mini-map on the JDAM interface. That helps you figure out where you're supposed to aim. If you don't do that, you'll kind of have to blind fire it, which that one did because he had apparently had quick unspawn activated, and he sort of disappeared, but I still managed to land a hit, Didn't kill him, but I was able to come in on a second gun run and finish him off because I saw the smoke cloud from where he was hanging out. Now, just a couple tips in closing on keeping yourself alive in the attack jet. If you're engaged by a helicopter using guided missiles or heat seekers, the best thing to do is going to be to fly straight up. Because if you can avoid that first hit, or even if you do eat the 2 missiles that it fires off, if you don't get your ECM activated in time, he won't be able to fire any follow-up salvos. And 2 heat seekers will not destroy an attack jet. I think if you don't have gyro stabilizer, it might disable you, which could be problematic. But as long as you have gyro, you can fly straight up and avoid those first 2 hits. That'll prevent you from getting plowed into the ground due to not being in control of the aircraft, and generally keep you alive. The other tip is a lot of people like to recommend using third-person view for flying, but I honestly find first-person view to be more helpful for 2 important reasons. 1, you can see your reticle, and 2, you can see your speed. And those 2 things are important, obviously, for aiming, and the speed indicator is important for optimal turning speed. But yeah, that's all I've got for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more Battlefield 4 or other similar games, please let me know in the comments below. This is Dread Pirate, signing off.